As you would have understood by now, the theme that I was told that was fixed for this evening was politics and economics in the new age. And just now I learned that friends had been informed the subject will be living spiritual life.
I think that was all part of one title, that it was living the spiritual life, politics and economics. And
anyway, I think neither the new age nor the new politics or the new economics can have any sense unless we start living a spiritual life. And how do we do it? Spiritual life is not a new concept. It is as old as man, as religion, as the concept of God and faith. And always, till the beginning of this century, spiritual life has meant a retirement, a withdrawal from day-to-day life in the world, a retreat into the heights of the spirit, into the wilderness of the spirit, denying oneself involvement, active involvement in life. It has gone too far. Individuals have indeed salvaged themselves, their souls, have liberated themselves from nature, from ignorance. But the world has been left pretty much as it was. It has not made any substantial difference to humanity at large. By a few individuals in every age, in every country, standing aside and merging themselves either into the ineffable peace or into the indescribable bliss. The turn of the century has marked all the world over a turn also into the meaning of spiritual life. Today, when we speak of spiritual life, we don't mean that old idea of withdrawal from life, but it means a relating of the spirit to matter, a living of life in the situations in which we find ourselves from a new background, from a new angle, so as to give full credit to things of the world, to matter, to life, to mind, and not to the spirit alone. Because we are beginning to see more and more clearly that there is no gulf, unbridgeable gulf between matter and spirit. It is spirit that is the soul of matter, and matter is the robe of the spirit. The old saying that the body is the temple of God, the tabernacle of the spirit, is being realized in its full implications today. And we have come to accept this world, this evolving scene of earth as the legitimate field for the expression of the spirit, by which we mean the values and the glory of God. The kingdom of heaven is not somewhere beyond. It is in potency in the heart of each person, crying to be delivered out of the individual form into the collective life around. Human consciousness at its present level of development has begun to feel that urgent call of earth to be equated with heaven, not to be sacrificed in order to attain heaven. The beauty of life, the rhythm of God, all are to be fused together here in the life of man. And the divine consciousness, which is another name, a more comprehensive term for what we have known and understood as God of religions, manifests itself, expresses itself in life as knowledge in the mind, a growing knowledge, an enlarging knowledge, a comprehensive knowledge. It expresses itself as love in the heart, in the soul. It expresses itself as power, as strength in the life energy and the outpourings of vitality. It seeks to organize itself as beauty in the physical. In matter, in physical form, it is as beauty that the divine manifests. And what is beauty in form is rhythm in movement, harmony. And any new type of spiritual life that seeks to embrace material life from the background of the spirit, or to express and organize the values of the spirit in the material life, has to take into account of this fourfold expression, manifestation of the divine in this evolving world. Most of us live primarily on the physical basis. We are first physical men before we become mental men or emotional or psychological types. And on the level of matter, on the level of the physical pulsation, we have to seek to become conscious of the divine breath everywhere. The first lesson of living spiritual life is to become conscious that there is one divine spirit, one pulsating divine consciousness in every creature that we see, in every form that we behold. And in doing that, we raise our own quantum of consciousness. Not only to theoretically believe, but in practice to recognize that there is a consciousness, that there is a divine breath in everything. Establish a communion with material things. Regard the presence and treat it as a companion in the spirit, as a friend and a colleague. Whether it is a table, a chair, a pen, a watch, a motor car, whatever the form, it has a consciousness. We must seek to awaken our sensitivity to that consciousness in things, establish a rapport, a communion and communication with it, and live a life that is one with things around us. We have no right to handle material things recklessly, waste them, break them any more than we can handle human beings in that way. When you develop this friendship, this feeling for physical objects around you, handle them with that care, tenderness, love, they too begin to respond. They last longer. They want your friendship. They feel sustained. And we have plenty of instances in life where things last longer in certain hands. The same things break down in a few days in some other hands. It is in the quality of consciousness that is brought to bear in each situation. So this is the first lesson, that we must become aware of and regard the divine presence as consciousness in everything around us. Express that relation in our day-to-day life and express beauty in the organization of life. This is one of the special things that I have been struck during my tours of the West, particularly in America, that there is such a great elegance of life. Care for beauty, beauty of plants, beauty of furniture, beauty of things, beauty in the bathrooms, which is the thing you will never find in the East. And it pains me when people feel apologetic about their so-called materialism, about their so-called attachment to material things and technology and so on, forgetting what a great blessing they have. They are living the spiritual life at a certain level without being aware of it. We have to foster the values of beauty. What is beauty? Beauty is an interpretation of the eternal. Beauty is the priestess of the divine delight, and beauty is built on harmony. The result of harmony is beauty. And the way life is organized here, consistent with the demands of aesthesis, physical aesthesis, beauty in placement, beauty in organization, that elegance of life, maybe people are not doing too consciously, but they are led to do it. That's the beauty of the expression of the divine in material forms. In any scheme of total progress, material civilization has an important role to play. It is an organization of the divine in matter. Just as the divine consciousness is to be organized on every level of our life, it has to be equally importantly organized at the material level. And rhythm. There should be a rhythm in movement, a controlled and a directed movement of our limbs, of our life, not a haphazard, unregulated movement, leaving everything to the mercy of the moment, but a well-directed harmony of movement. Many of these elements were present in some of the older civilizations, like the Greek ones, to which I referred earlier in the day. That beauty of form, perfection of human body, and that rhythm, beauty of movement. Possibly there are some of the ideas inherent in the development of the Olympics, That too is a part of the divine manifestation. And the body, the physical body, has to be fostered, cultivated, cultured as an important part of participating in spiritual life. Because the body has a consciousness of its own. We have neglected it too far. The body is being driven by two tyrants, the life desire and mental preferences. The body has to yield always and be driven. But the body has an individuality of its own. It is crying to be heard. And all these movements of physical therapies, physical transformation, free from disease, are all indications that the body is coming into its own. The body has a consciousness and a life of its own. Left to itself, the body consciousness can judge what is good for it and what is not, can feel occultly a place of where an accident is going to take place and it shrinks from that. We have allowed our mental ego to interfere too much with the free movement of the bodies. So a fine combination of physical culture exercises of the Western type which stimulate the muscular energies, and a judicious selection from the yogic postures which promote endurance of the body, clearance of clogged sections in the system, and bringing peace into the cells. That is a very important part of spiritual programs. The exercise, physical culture exercises of the Western type, they stimulate the energies. The yogic asanas and postures, they pacify, they tranquilize and put peace into the body system. Both cannot be combined and practiced at the same time. We have to have different periods, but these are matters of detail. What I have said so far concerns an aesthetic and a serious regulation of physical life in terms of expressing the diviner values of beauty, harmony, rhythm. The next is the various vital energies that course through the body and keep it active, keep it dynamic. As things stand at present, we work, we expend our energies under the double drive of our ego and desire. And in the process, we organize all life around our personal needs, personal preferences, and forge what is called karma. Karma is a concentration or a gathering of reactions to our actions, consequences of what we do. They all become a long chain governing our life, not only in this birth but in many births to come. As long as we work, we act with motives from a personal ego standpoint, desire standpoint, everything that we do, even the breath that we take, has a reaction and forges a new link in the chain of karma. But in the spiritual life of this conception that I am presenting to you, offering to you, you learn, you begin by offering all the energies to God. Every action that you do, and no person can live without action even for a moment. That is a law of life. Each action that we do, not necessarily religious actions, spiritual actions, or what are called high actions, but even what are called insignificant and ordinary activities, all are to be offered to the divine. There is a line in one of the most celebrated scriptures of the East, the Gita. It says, as men offer to me, I accept them as they give. A leaf, a flower, a cup of water, whatever they give, I accept with the same tenderness. And each act that we offer to the divine as our offering of love, it is accepted. And such an act does not forge karma. It becomes, on the other hand, a means for liberation, a means for perfection of our consciousness. Separated from desire motive, from ego basis, all actions turn into progressive self-offerings to the divine. And the true test whether one has done it is that one does not hanker after particular fruits of activity. All the fruits are surrendered, and one learns to accept the will of God, whatever it is. Next, the egoism of the doer, that I am doing the work and I am offering, that too is to be offered. One learns to tune oneself to the higher energy, to the divine power, and let the higher power work through one. By a repeated self-tuning to higher and broader energies, one gets trained to function as a channel and let the higher force work. When that takes place, even at the end of a day, there is no fatigue. When we are fatigued after work, it means that our attitude in work is not the right. Otherwise, even at the end of the day, there is a bubbling of energy. There is great glow of enthusiasm. There is as if one has done lot of austerity, lot of ascesis through action. It is why my teacher said that work is the body's best prayer to the divine. It is the body's worship of the divine through work. That raises the whole status of work, changes the character of work. Whatever the work, its nature and character change. Third is our emotions. There's a heart. It is always a mixed sea of emotions. No emotion is whole and pure. It is mixed up with many other things. We have in us, each one of us, what are called soul elements, godly qualities, and qualities that we have inherited from our animal past. The negative, the dark qualities, faculties like evil propensities, anger, hostility, vindictiveness, pride, envy, these are all negative qualities, opposed to and veiling the influence of the soul. And there are qualities, godly qualities, which proceed from the depths of the soul: harmony, kindness, benevolence, friendship, purity, sincerity, love. It is a part of this spiritual life to steadily and consciously diminish and ultimately eliminate the negative qualities from one's life, and assiduously to promote the positive qualities, the diviner qualities, the qualities of the soul. And that has to be expressed, organized in one's day-to-day life. Each moment of our life, we are offered the choice between the godly and the ungodly. The path that leads upwards to God and the path that slides downward. We have to consciously exercise our choice. And this is called an inner catharsis, a purification of our emotions. And even at the risk of being misunderstood, even at the risk of losing immediate dividends in life, one has to put one's weight on the side of what one feels to be truth, good. What is good and what is bad? These good and bad are very relative terms. Who is to decide? Each scripture has its own way of telling what is considered to be good. In Islam, some of those things are considered to be bad in some other religions. How do we decide? We have a simple barometer, a simple standard. Whatever promotes and furthers our growth Godward is good. Whatever stands in the way, whatever draws us back is bad, is evil. That is all. Each one has to sincerely face the situation and decide. This is called the culture of the soul, the psychic education, the psychic drawing forth of the psychic energies in life. A progressive growth into the image of the divine, of all that is proceeds from love, harmony and unity. Moving away from the past moorings into their opposites. And next comes the most important, and that is the mental life slowly converted into a spiritual endeavor. Man is essentially a mental being, and most of his life is governed by mental impulsions. But the mind that we know, the mind that leads us and guides us, is still in its infancy. We are, so to truth to tell, in the kindergarten of our mental culture. There is much, 9/10 of the mind we do not know yet. We are still playing and skinning on the surface. We speak of reason, we speak of intellect, we speak of logic. But we know that the best knowledge that we can gather today by the faculties at our disposal is suspected, denied and replaced by another knowledge tomorrow. Sri Aurobindo refers to this phenomenon in Savitri as his epic as knowledge, human knowledge, turbaned with doubt. Whatever you believe, you doubt. But there are faculties, there are levels of consciousness above the mind, above the reasoning intellect, behind the intellect, surface of the intellect, which are in direct possession of truth, which have knowledge in a spontaneous measure. Only we are too occupied with our restless, agitated minds, and we don't give room to this inner knowledge, to this higher knowledge, to come forward in our life. So, in spiritual life, the first thing we do is to learn to control the mind. After you have a control, to silence the mind, still the mind, so that the peace, the quietude, the calm that are always there behind the surface waves of mental activity, they begin to make themselves felt. And in that silence, in that state of receptivity, an inner call, a silent will that other faculties must open themselves, that is enough. They are all waiting to be invoked and set active in the being of man. above the mind of the intellect. There is the mind of ideas and concepts. There is the higher mind which sees knowledge in masses, not one thing at a time, but largely, comprehensively. Above the higher mind, there is what I may call the illumined mind, where knowledge pours in flashes, in brilliant lights, formations, lighting up everything that one wants to know. Above that, there is the intuitive mind, where knowledge comes as rays of truth. Whatever you want to know, without laboring, without having to debate about it, you have the solution. Most of the discoveries, most of the solutions obtained by scientists, mathematicians in our history have been the result of such play of intuitions. It is afterwards that the individuals concerned have taken steps to logically justify them. But there is a level in our being of consciousness which is intuitive. That what is intuition above the mind is present as instinct below the human level. Animals have instinct. They are guided. It is an instinct that guides them right. But above the mental level, it is intuition. And above intuition is what is called the cosmic consciousness. A consciousness of oneness of the globe, of unity, a global consciousness. And there is the truth consciousness. So we have still so many grades to do. And it is part of spiritual culture to silence the mind and open it to the action, to the affirmation, and to the organization of these higher faculties that can change entirely the face of our life. There need not be suffering, there need not be pain, there need not be error. Life can be a picture of beauty, harmony, truth, delight. All these faculties are waiting to be dynamized, actualized. Whether it's all philosophers of evolution, whether it is Teilhard Chardin or Sri Aurobindo or anybody, they are all affirming today that man is on the verge of going beyond himself. Each has his own conception, own formulation of what is that future, what is that dimension in which man is going to take the leap. Some conceptions are colored by their religious background, some by their scientific background, but the fact stands that man is on the verge of a climactic change. And exercises, disciplines like meditation, self-contemplation, self-scrutiny, and self-inquiry. These are various steps to observe ourselves, apply the right pressures in different spheres of life, and open the mind, the heart, the life, the body to the action of a divine energy that is flowing in our cosmos at an unprecedented rate today. This is how we conceive that spiritual life should be organized and expressed in our day-to-day life. For that, we do not need to leave our homes, to leave our assigned positions in life and go to monasteries, hermitages or ashrams. We have to convert each home into an ashram, a laboratory of a divine experiment. And it is in the midst of life that the challenge has to be faced. It is in the midst of life that we can test for ourselves whether we have truly gained in our consciousness, whether we have truly worked out the changes. It is easy enough, very easy to be nice, benevolent when one is alone, when one things go according to one's wish. But when things go counter, when you are surrounded by 10 people around, each reacting in a different way, can you keep your equanimity? Can you have your tranquil mind? Can the heart emanate rays of healing love? These are the questions that we have to face, ask ourselves. And life in the world is the right crucible for testing the reality and the rate of our progress. I think I have said what I had got to say, and now I would invite questions. Yeah?
Your talk in Seattle was advertised as being the post-guru age. Without going into a complete lecture, can you explain what you meant in that?
Yes, yes. The institution of the Guru has been an indispensable part of spiritual life so far. In the first place, it was because all knowledge, particularly knowledge to the inner life of man, inner processes of nature, what we call occultism, spirituality, that knowledge was guarded by a few adepts. It was not allowed to be made public. Whether in the east or the west, there were always custodians of this higher knowledge, and it was not allowed to come into the hands of the public lest it be misused. That tradition started pretty well early, some 2000 or 3000 years ago, and one had to resort to a teacher, a guru, who was in possession of that knowledge and who alone could communicate by word of mouth that knowledge which he held in himself. In India, for a long time, it was prohibited to write down certain directions or instructions in spiritual life. It was communicated by the father to the son orally, or by a teacher to his disciple orally, and that constituted the line of tradition. Today, particularly from the beginning of the century, after the First World War, there has been such an explosion of knowledge that everything is laid bare, discussed to the last threads. Nothing, there is very little distinction today left between esoteric and exoteric. And one no more needs to go to a teacher to learn how to practice spiritual life, what steps to take. They are all given, standardized and communicated to the world, obviously because the human mind, the human consciousness has got ready to receive and utilize that knowledge without any danger. Second, man has come of age. Man has become an adult in mind. He does not need to be spoon-fed by somebody else. And it is a sign of his maturity, self-respect, that he finds the source of guidance in himself and not stick to somebody else to do the work for him. In many cases, to have a guru is made an excuse to be inert, inertia, laziness. They just expect the guru to do everything. This is offensive to the developing consciousness of man. He has to work on himself. He may take the help of a guide, but not a guru who is expected to regulate his entire life for him. Third, one of the impulsions of the time spirit is decentralization. Decentralization in politics, in economics, social affairs, religion and spirituality. The age of the Messiah, the sole savior, is gone. Hereafter, each one has to be his own savior. There will have to be, the divine spirit is expressing itself, organizing itself in groups of like-minded seekers. And whatever incarnation we have, it will be a collective incarnation and not an individual incarnation hereafter. So the whole emphasis has shifted from the individual to the universal. We have now on the verge of breakthrough from the individual age to the universal age. The individual man has to yield place to the universal man who is arising. And the age of universal man, universal consciousness, there can be no concentration of power, no concentration of knowledge in one individual or a class of individuals. This is the central thrust of my perception and argument, that hereafter this category, breed of gurus have no future, and men will learn to depend upon themselves more and more, find the inner leader, find the inner captain in themselves, rather than seek external help, external directions, as children seek lollipops. Yes.
We spoke this afternoon that Orville had been developed out of the idea and the philosophy of pure Orville on a put into practice, and that there were no reviews. So, could you talk a little bit more about how it organized?
Yes. Yes. Aurobindo is a planned planetary city by the mother, who was the collaborator of Sri Aurobindo, in whose name the ashram was founded and developed by the mother for over 50 years. In the ashram, where the membership rose from about 20 to 1700 permanent members, staying permanently, a life was developed, a collective life consisting of seekers of like minds, like aspirations for change of consciousness from the human to the divine. And an equation was attempted and arrived at between the individual and the collectivity. A new pattern of life was developed where economic competition, rivalry, money economy had no place. After satisfying herself that this pattern of life is viable, workable, contrary to the suppositions of doctrinaires of economics or social sciences. They say that man cannot work, cannot progress without an economic motive, without a selfish pursuit of his personal interest and happiness. Man cannot sacrifice himself completely to ideals. She proved that it is possible, and man can turn into a better being, more promising potential, when the whole basis is changed. But it was all done with an essentially spiritual motive and a yogic discipline that we all followed. And one of the parts of the yogic discipline that we followed voluntarily, gladly, at our own choice, was that in our ashram we had no sex, no drink, no politics. These are only the 3 rules. Now, to extend this experiment project on a larger scale, to apply it to the world at large, she relaxed the yogic requirements of no sex and no drink, but only kept no politics, and added no drugs, and invited people who are prepared to try this experiment to come and join. The city has been programmed to have ultimately about 50,000 people over an area of 11,000 acres of land, divided into separate zones, zones for agriculture, zones for industries, zones for cultural activities, and so on. But the important requirements are that nobody owns private wealth. all is commonwealth. Nobody is a citizen of this country or that country, but all are citizens of one world, practicing the ideal of human unity. All sustained and developed by, maintained by the township, but contributing in their best effective ways to the development of the collective progress. The rest of the time, each individual is free to develop his personality, his consciousness, unfettered by any traditions, social, economic or cultural, of any country, any race. And there is no such thing as a chairman, president, secretary, and there is no organizational apparatus to govern. It is a self-governing community where people from different communities, there are about 20 settlements today in this township of 500 people, of which nearly 350 to 400 are from non-Indian countries. Of running the township, of administering it, is left to the residents themselves. There is no, as I said, there is no boss. There is no governing council. But the representatives of different communities, those who work more, who are the representatives? Nobody elects the representatives there. He who works more, he who is more responsible, who gives himself more and more, he is naturally recognized as the representative at that time. Such representatives meet when their areas are concerned, decide priorities and function. If they can't agree, nothing moves. And the fact that life becomes impossible forces them to come to a kind of consensus agreement. We are learning making mistakes, true, but it is an experiment worth doing. The dream of the social thinker, that society is perfect where there is no government, where there is no state. A spiritual anarchism is a difficult word, but there it does not mean, when you say spiritual anarchism, that you can do what you like. One who has got that spiritual consciousness, he can never think of harming another. When he thinks of himself, he thinks of the collectivity as centered in himself. He has no interest separate from those of his collectivity. But there are no institutional barriers to constrict his freedom. So this ideal is sought to be practiced in Aurobindo, where we have no police, we have no courts, we don't want them to come. But by goodwill, by collaboration, by voluntary association, on the basis of love, of goodwill, we seek to solve the problems and govern ourselves. The whole of India is watching and supporting with its goodwill this experiment. Even the government of India regards it with sympathy and wants it to succeed so that it could be India's contribution to world peace. We have about 20 nationalities of people there, people from all ages, and there is a great freedom of experiment. New experiments are being conducted in education, in art, in music. And one of the principles that Mother has said is that there should be a place on earth somewhere where man is free to live as a citizen of the world, where work is not a means for earning one's livelihood, but an occasion for creative expression. Work should be a means of joy. Art, music, and such pursuits should be open to everybody, and participation in them should not be determined by one's means or by one's class, but by one's capacity to participate and further the growth in those fields. Where education is so organized that the child is not separated from its soul, but the child is consulted in its own growth, where men and women have absolute equality of functioning, of life, and all regard themselves as souls and not as bodies. Well, and she has said many other things, but these are the lines on which that planetary city is developing. It is now 11 years since it started with the foundation ceremony, which was highly impressive and symbolic, where about 138 countries sent soil of their earth through their representatives, pledged their goodwill, loyalty to this universal town, and all that earth has been put in an urn in the form of a lotus, and that is regarded as the foundation of the city. After 10-11 years, there are certain problems, and we are glad that the problems have come now rather than later, and they are essentially problems of a conflict between the past and the future. The past, old atavistic habits of ownership, assertion of one's own ego, one's own will on others, and the freedom of the present to leap into the future by refusing allegiance to the standards of the past. We have these troubles, but I suppose nobody can grow without pressure, and mother was, her ultimate perception was that spiritual life, the true spiritual life and spiritual progress cannot be achieved in isolation. It can be achieved, the greatest spiritual progress is achieved under the greatest pressure of life. And this is where we stand.
How are the economics of such a community to the outside world?
The aim is to have a self-sustaining economy. But during the last 10 years, the environment is so hard that it is all sand, something like a desert. It has an old history, eroded soil, no water, no power, and everything has to be built. In those difficult conditions, they have learned to produce so far 1/3 of their requirements, and the rest is being met by public donations, gifts of goodwill from all over the world. But they are working hard to achieve an economy which is not, self-sufficient but self-sustaining. We want to have interchange with the wide world, have things, give things, but the minimum essential for a self-sustaining, respectable life, they are confident of building, of creating. Don't plan to have huge industries, huge technological edifices there, but small is beautiful. That is appropriate at this moment there. In Indian conditions, modern technology cannot work, cannot be applied in its raw. All our land holdings, for instance, are 1 acre, 1.5 acre, each individual. So if you bring a tractor there of the type you are using in America, it is impractical. Each one has his fence, and how is the tractor going to work? So we are borrowing what is called appropriate technology.
Who owns title to the land? Does the tree, Aurobindo, Orcas?
The thing is, mother has given what is called the Charter of Aurobindo. And some water please. In this Charter of Aurobindo, the first sentence itself is, there are 4 sentences in the charter. it says that Auroville belongs to nobody in particular. It belongs to humanity as a whole. But legally, because we live in a land where there are laws, we have to thank you. Legally, the lands that were purchased or donated had to be registered in some name of some legal entity. So we have in the ashram a number of subsidiary organizations working for particular objectives. We have got the World Union International, with which I happen to be associated, working for world unity on spiritual basis. There is a Sri Aurobindo Society working for the propagation of the teachings and collecting funds for the work. Now the lands have all been purchased and registered in their name, but it is understood that it was only a legal convenience, and Auroville is going to be administered by people who live in Auroville. But nobody owns Auroville. Even those who live in Auroville can't own Auroville. Auroville is more a concept, and what is there is only a physical expression. Everyone who believes in a new age and a new consciousness can say he has a stake in Auroville. United Nations today, it belongs to nobody. Every country has a say, supposed to have a say. Similarly, Auroville belongs to everybody.
Is there an energy crisis in Aurobindo?
No, because the environmental conditions are such that we have still there the bullock cart, the horse pony cart, cycle, and a scooter or a motorcycle is a big thing there. And old motor cars, donated by friends, jeeps. People don't use motor cars there because they get spoiled in that area, hilly area. So jeeps are used, and most of the jeeps and things are run by diesel oil, and we don't have much energy crisis there at this moment. I think 1/10 of the oil that is wasted in this country could keep India going for 10 years. Yes.
I understand that you've traveled to a lot of what are referred to as New Age communities on your recent trips around the world. Could you talk a little bit about your impressions of some of the other communities
Yes.
around the world?
It is true. Ever since I started coming to America, somehow things have happened in such that I find myself in the midst of many new age communities, whether they call themselves that way or not. And I have learned much from these visits. I have learned positive lessons, as also I have picked up negative warnings, what should not be done and what should be done. The dangers that I have seen in many of the New Age communities is they are not clear of their objectives. What for and how? Why do you want a New Age community? Is it to just have new social relations like free love, freedom for drugs, smoking, so that you can do these things unhindered by society, social taboos? Is it because you don't want to have the evils of capitalism or the evils of communism? You can have a free kind of exchange and barter between yourselves. All these are adjustments, economic adjustments, political adjustments, social adjustments. But they are not going to form a new age, bring in a new consciousness. There has to be an initial commitment, a spiritual commitment on the part of each participating member to the task of changing one's inner consciousness. React to things differently, develop that sensitivity of consciousness. That exercise, that homework is not done enough in many of the communities. Unless, as I was saying earlier, we establish the sense of consciousness of fraternity within ourselves and really feel that all of us are one. The present order of life doesn't permit us to do that. So we have to build a new order in which we can freely associate with those whom we want, and there should be nobody whom we do not want, and there should be no distinction of class, wealth, nationalities and races. These are holding people apart, but they have to be discarded now. But for all that, an inner edifice is necessary. A spiritual foundation is necessary. A spiritual commitment is necessary. And even in Aurobindo, which we started with so much promise, whatever signs of failure are there are where spiritual commitments are not honored, where individual egoistic preferences and outlooks are forced upon others or sought to be forced on others. That is one. Second, the feeling that elitist mentality. There are some who feel we are a superior people. We are not like these old world people. We are building a new future. That feeling that we are superior, we are special, we deserve special treatment. Now this elitist mentality, some are polite enough not to express it, but it is there in their approach to the rest, and wanting to convert everybody to their viewpoint, force their ideology on others. These are hardly signs of a successful new community. I feel there is plenty of promise, plenty of potentiality in this country with large numbers of people wanting to constitute new communities, sacrifice everything that they have, but no clear direction yet. The implications are not understood. Sex is confused with love. Drugs are confused with altering states of consciousness. Now these are some of the things that have to be brought home to the young minds, and I have seen that when it is done in a persuasive manner, they have given up hearing. We are in a delicate stage. New age communities are a must. They have to come, but they have to be reared on the right basis, and they should not be organized around the personality of one person or two persons. Wherever it has been done, things have crashed. What is happening in Findhorn today after so many things? What is going to happen in Arcosanti after he goes? Too much should not be emphasized on the personality of the person. You can have that vision, but it is the responsibility of the founder to prepare a new leadership, to prepare a phalanx of responsible people when he is alive, and that is not being done. People are afraid of losing power. I would like to be corrected. Yes.
And on the same line of thought, you were talking about people having beliefs that they want to enforce on others, or theological differences.
Yes.
One of the common ones that I've been seeing lately that I'd really like to hear you address yourself to is in Christian Bible, a lot of people zero in on the reference to Jesus claiming I am the way, and they emphasize the way, and claiming that pretty much that if you're not believing in Jesus, then you're missing the boat. And, while I think Jesus is a powerful spirit, I somehow don't think he would limit us to to in that way. Anyway, how would you address yourself to that?
These, such kind of declarations are not special to Christian religion. In Islam, and other various religions, such declarations are attributed to all those great incarnations. Whether they actually said it or not is another matter. What they meant when they said it is another way. We must know that the first Gospels came to be written 80 years after Jesus Christ. What is known as Buddhism today was promulgated by the first Buddhist council 500 years after Gautam Buddha passed. We never know, but still, assuming that what he said is true, it does not relate to the historical Jesus Christ, but to the essential Christ, the Christ consciousness, God consciousness. God is the way, God is the path. That's true. It is doing a disservice to the mission of Jesus Christ to limit it to that historical personality and deny grace to those who are not in that fold. What about those who were born before Jesus Christ came? What about all those immense millions who are outside the pale of Christianity? The missionaries have no hesitation in saying that unless you accept baptism from us, you are heathens. I was told an interesting story, which I think I have not told in these areas, and that is one good man, religious man, who has done a lot of good things, meriting a birth in heaven. He dies, and he goes to heaven. And I believe it is St. Paul who receives him there and shows him round the heaven. You can be here and all that. And that man, he watches. Around that whole heaven there are huge walls, possibly bigger than Berlin walls. And he says, but why are these walls around? He says, on the other side there are Catholics. They don't believe that others can come to heaven. So they are all there, and there are non-Catholics here. I think there is a point in the story. And this kind of religious, institutionalized religions, wanting to proselytize, to be one up, is suicidal. And no New Age community can thrive on the basis of the institutionalized religions. We want Jesus Christ, but not the church. We want Buddha, but not Buddhism. But Hinduism you can't say, because there is no founder for Hinduism. Hinduism is based on experiences of so many people. It is still growing, because everyone who has a spiritual fundamental realization is free to offer it to humanity, justify it, make it verifiable, and he is accepted. So even today there are new paths, new creeds, new sects growing. So Hinduism is not a religion. It is a way of life. It is a way of thinking and feeling. And there is no danger of this monopolist spirit coming into Hinduism. And any New Age community has to be away from this divisive character of institutionalized religions. And when I spoke of New Age communities, I had some of these communities in mind who are totally Christian based and Christian limited. You can base yourself on Christian faith, true, very good, but don't limit yourself to what is contained in the Bible. We have to go beyond the letter. We have to breathe the spirit of Bible and not the letter of the Bible. In Islam, in Quran, it is said that put to sword and kill him who does not accept Allah. And all those wars of crusades and all that, they seriously believed that by killing people who don't accept their religion, they are doing a great thing for God. They believed in it. And today, even in the 20th century, there are missionaries in our countries, in our part of the world, who are financed by American money, mostly. Now because Europe is poor, all the money goes from American missions. And they are converting people, offering bribes, temptations, converting to the only religion that can save them. That is still going on, and I seriously believe. All the food, all the milk tins which are sent to famine areas in India, in the East, by American philanthropy, they are routed through the American missionaries, the priests. And those priests see to it that they never reach the people concerned. The hungering masses, it never reaches. They commercialize the thing. They go into what is called black market. I think the expression is new here. Ron, Americans won't understand if I say black market, do they? So that is how it is going on. Religion is being exploited, put to commercial use. So in the new perspective, these things have to be left behind.
Could I offer another?
Yes, welcome.
Jesus said, I am the way. Just recently I was reading some big occult philosophy which said that you are making progress when you realize that you are the way, that you are the path was the word used.
Very fine.
For you will be making progress when you realize that you are the way, and I am the way.
I think it is fine.
That's another way of turning a statement that is universal, but the people who wrote the Bible didn't see the full universality of it. Forgive me.
It's beautiful. Can we stop it, sir? It is 9:30. I am used to go to bed very early.
Thank you all for coming.